Hey, Annie, would you say that I'm like socially awkward?
Yeah, but you fake not being socially awkward pretty well.
Sometimes. Sometimes I fake it really well.
Yeah, I would say I'm a big sometimes also.
Mm-hmm.
Rafi's Rambles, Rafi's Rambles, Rafi's Rambles.
Hola, you amazing artist! One of the questions that I get most often for you guys has to do with talking about your art or going out in public and talking to people.
Going out in public?
Yeah, going out in public, actually leaving the studio and attempting to congregate with other human beings.
Deplorable.
Mm-hmm. So I got a question from, let me move over here. Imhotep. Hopefully I'm saying that correctly.
Imhotep.
What do you do if you really just don't like to talk about yourself and your art to people? Or what kind of things do people usually want to know from you at art markets? And can you tell if they actually want to buy art or just want to shoot the shit? So to answer that question, I would have to start with, if you don't like talking about yourself, you do have to define to yourself what that means. What does it mean to talk about yourself to other people? Back in the day, I had a really difficult time talking about myself to other people because in my mind, the idea of talking about yourself was the same thing as boasting about yourself. And I didn't want to boast about myself. I think it had something to do with being afraid of being seen as a narcissistic. Like, here I am talking about myself.
Yeah, I think I suffered from the same thing, and on the inside I was like, I'm just not that interesting, actually.
Yeah, I think for some strange reason we compare ourselves to some kind of imaginary standard that makes us think that we are not interesting or we really have nothing about ourselves to talk about. Really what it comes down to, and what I've learned over the years, is that when you are talking to people about yourself, you're just talking about the things you like or the things that you have an opinion on. Especially as an artist, you have certain things that you like to paint, things that you don't like to paint, and essentially talking about yourself and what those people are interested in is finding out more about you and who you are and why do you paint the things that you paint. I think what happens is that when you start to think about a scenario where you are going to have a conversation with one person or several other people, what happens is you go into this mixed up scenario that is based on maybe awkward moments that you've had in the past. Like, what if I say the wrong things? What if I, say something that they disagree with? Or what if they don't think that I'm cool because I said these things?
Yeah, and listen, I've had plenty of experience saying things that just didn't jive with people. And either they walk away thinking, that girl's very strange, or they walk away thinking, ooh, I just met a very eccentric artist.
Yeah, there have been lots of times where I have said things where maybe I thought it was a cool thing and it wasn't a cool thing, or I've made a total fool of myself. The nervousness that comes with interacting with other human beings is the fact that you feel like you are going to be judged. And really the reason that you'd be doing that is because you're judging yourself in the first place. And you may be judging yourself, just like Clee said, where you think that you're not interesting enough, that there's nothing special about you. What I notice is that if you do have a difficult time expressing yourself and just being yourself around people, I would take a closer look and see if maybe there's something about yourself that you are afraid to express out into the world. If you go out to an event and you're like, you know what, I'm going to be myself, I'm going to talk about the things that I enjoy talking about. I'm going to talk about my art and be completely honest about who I am and what I stand for. And the people there could take it or leave it. I don't care whether or not they like me or they don't like me. I'm not there to be an a-hole, but I am just going to be myself. That's who I'm going to be. There's something absolutely freeing about that, to be able to go and say, I'm going to talk about the things that I'm interested in. And if somebody's talking about something that they're interested in, that's fine. I'm going to listen and try to follow along as best I can. But if it's something that I'm absolutely not interested in, I am better off just saying, I'm not really interested in that, or I don't know anything about that, than to try to engage in a full-on conversation based on something that you don't want to talk about.
Yeah, it's true. You're not obligated to really talk to anyone.
One of the most common things that I hear is like, hey man, how's it going? Like, how's it going? It's almost like this completely empty question. Like, how's it going? Nobody cares.
Insert cricket track.
Yeah. Insert cricket track. What's the other question? It's the one that Alex would ask all the time.
What's happening?
Yeah. Hey, what's happening? My cousin asks that question all the time. Every time he would run into us, he's like, hey, cuz, what's happening? And I'd stand there and look at him. I'm like, I don't know. I'm standing here. You're standing there. You just asked me what's happening. Things like that have those standard answers that are like, same shit, different day, like blah, 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 where they're not really conversations. I don't jive in that. I don't really have a good time with those conversations. I'm one of those annoying people that likes to talk about things that are not on the surface. People start talking to me about like so-and-so blah, 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 and then this person blah, 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 and this famous person blah, blah, blah. I kind of like completely shut down from the conversation.
No, I don't think most people are actually even listening to one another during those types of conversations. And I have proof.
You do?
Hey, how are you? Me. I'm good. How are you? Them. I'm good. How are you? Me. I'm good.
I would say that taking note of the ridiculousness of the way that society interacts with one another, the way that humans interact with one another, you do really have to question why it is that you would be nervous putting yourself out there and just having a conversation with people, because nobody's really listening anyway. I think the nervousness comes from that whole concept of like, you have to make a good first impression. Blah.
Now, I've gotten really comfortable with talking to people at shows and whatnot, but I tend not to even talk about myself unless I'm specifically asked something about myself.
Yeah.
I'll bore them to death for an hour about rocks and metals, if they'll stick around.
Yeah, metal! Don't ever put yourself in a situation where you're feeling awkward or feel that like you have to talk to people either, because that's not the case. In fact, recently I had my reception and I barely spoke to anybody. The people that I did talk to were people that I knew and I recognized, and I went up to them and said hi. Some of you guys that watch us here on YouTube showed up to the art reception and I got to meet a couple of you. I'm hiding in one of the artist studios because there's too many people out there and
So many humans, so little elbow room.
apparently I can't do a video today about not being socially awkward.
Because we're being socially awkward.
Yeah, we're totally being socially awkward. So if you're being socially awkward when you go to your event, don't feel bad about it.
Just find a corner or a studio.
I didn't feel like having a conversation. Nobody ever said that you need to go up to everybody and have a conversation. So if you're planning on showing your art to people, then there is a dialogue that you do want to open up with them. And that's what you have to take a look at. Really, a lot of times when you have a hard time talking to other human beings, it's because it's outside of your comfort zone. You're too worried about people judging you or you making a bad first impression or you making a wrong impression, when in actuality, the best thing you could do is just be yourself. You may not be a total extrovert life of the party, and that's fine. You don't have to be. To tell you the truth, the simplest thing is to just go somewhere and just say hi. Hi. You don't have to give them some profound thing. Just hello. That's it. That's the icebreaker. You want an icebreaker? An icebreaker is hello. You don't have to have some monologue rehearsed every time that you're going to go anywhere to go and talk to somebody. All you do is start the conversation with hello and see where it goes. That person may be awesome and you might really, really enjoy that conversation. Or that person may not be a great match for you. You may just be like, all right, well, this is good meeting you. I'll talk to you later.
And look, the simple fact of the matter is, you are going to get comfortable talking to people the more you put yourself out there.
Yeah.
I was the most terrified person in the whole world to speak to anyone under any circumstances about me or my art. Even in social situations that had nothing to do with my art, I was utterly terrified.
Yep.
And now I really actually enjoy talking to all the people at shows and whatnot.
I think what happens is that a lot of people identify themselves as just this one thing, like, oh, well, I'm really socially awkward, or I can't really have conversations with anybody. Then they think that because that's true right now, that it's just going to be true all the time, that from this day forth, you shall never feel comfortable at a party. Like, that's just not how it works. The reason that some people are more extroverted is because they've had more experience with that. As a kid, they went to places and they made friends easily and they had more of those experiences. A lot of us introverts, like myself, just spent a lot of time alone when they were younger. And so we didn't have as much practice going out into the world and interacting with other human beings. So if you put yourself in situations where you get to practice that out, that's one of the reasons that I say get started at markets and do the flea market if you don't have any other options, or get out into public places where you do have to interact with people. The trick is to walk away from it and realize, like, okay, well, how could I have done that differently? What could have gone differently? What was I feeling? Was I really nervous about who I am? Was I afraid to just be myself? How can I do this differently? And realize that every single time you go, it's just kind of like a practice run and a practice run. Every single social interaction that I have is a practice run for me. So even if it goes horribly wrong and I make a total ass of myself, it was just a practice run. I've said some stupid things in front of a crowd of people, and because I laughed at myself, it wasn't a big deal because I didn't take myself seriously. It wasn't like, oh my God, I can't believe I said that. My world is over. As long as you're yourself and you have a good time and just don't take yourself seriously, I guarantee you that your first impression is going to at least be genuine. So if somebody doesn't like you, well, screw them. You don't need people that don't like the genuine you in your life.
Also, remember that as an artist, you have license to be a slight percentage weirder and more awkward than the general population. So just embrace that.
Oh yeah, we're weird.
I don't even think it's a slight percentage. I think you have license to be as weird and awkward as you want.
Yep. And the fact of the matter is that I read your comments, so I know you guys are totally weird and awkward, and I love it. And as far as the second part of your question, whether or not people want to shoot the shit or they want to buy your art, really, it's the same thing. Some people that want to buy your art, they want to shoot, they want to talk to you, they want to get to know you a little bit more, they want to know who they're buying this artwork from. And some people that are just interested in your art want to know more about you, want to know more about the art. It doesn't come down to whether or not this person is going to buy something or if they just want to shoot the shit or if one of them is more valuable than the other one. It's not. You just need to practice. You just need to go out there and talk to people, and don't worry about saying the wrong thing or making mistakes. As long as you laugh at yourself and you have fun, who cares?
I have one final thing.
All right, Clee's final thing, and then we're ending the video because it's running a little bit long.
Okay, and I've said this in a previous video, but practice talking about your art to people that you trust, like your inner circle, so they can give you feedback. And the second thing is, if you're going to a reception or you're out at a show or whatever the situation is, bring a friend with you who makes you feel good and comfortable, and talk amongst yourselves, because you'll be more likely to engage other people if you're already in a good conversation.
Yeah. Imhotep, hopefully that answered your question. And if you guys have any questions for us, just leave those in the comments section below. And thank you so much for watching, you guys. You guys are absolutely freaking amazing. I totally adore you. And if you like this and you want to watch more like this, just click right over here to subscribe. And that's it. Say goodbye, Clee.
Good day.
Adios.